welcome everyone. As people start to put on their audio, we'll just wait a little bit for that. Plus, I need to find my cursor. Here we go. Okay. All right. Looks like everyone has their audio on, and most are in. Welcome, ACE grantees, to the 2022, our first talking circle for this new year. Again, this is the talking circle for demo ACE grantees. Let's go ahead and get this claimed.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Awesome. So now that we've got this cleaned, this is sort of what's on the agenda for today. We're going to do some announcements, and then again, the goal of Talking Circle or Talking Stick is really to have conversations with amongst grantees as well as with your program officer, Bianca. And so we're going to be doing some program sharing around GEPRA measures, as well as looking at native language and culture and how that helps with, supports educational attainment of Native students. And then at the end, we'll sort of close out with some upcoming events. So we're joined by your program officer, Bianca Williams. Hey, Bianca.
Natsium, Nostalgia Sium, C Nuts, Bianca Williams. Happy New Year's, everyone. You can go to the next slide.
That's me, Oleni. Moving on. Go ahead.
Yes, so we have confirmed the APR date. You can put it on your calendars that the APR will be due the last day of April, which is April 29th this year. The package will be open March 18th. And to follow that week, we will have a talking stick session on the 16th of Wednesday. And that whole talking stick session will be just for the APR. So please plan to be there, bring your coworkers, bring your family, make it an event. Let's, make sure that everyone's on there so we can have some really good APRs. And the project directors meeting is virtual, as you all should know already. But just to let you know, the dates will be the 10th through the 12th. I believe Synergy may be giving some more information on that soon, on the logistics of that, but definitely put that on your calendar as well. We'll make it super fun. We'll do, some interactive activities, have some recorded sessions, have some really good speakers. If you grantees have anything you want to highlight or, contribute, please email me as well. So it'll be super fun. I definitely like playing games. And this year is OIE's 50th anniversary. So, we're going to have a little fun with that. And, just a heads up, because it might be on one of my trivia questions, but OIE was created before the Department of Education. So, we've been around for a while. Also, I noticed a lot of indirect cost rate agreements ended December of last year. So if you need to update your indirect cost rate agreement because you have a new rate, please send that in. I know a lot of people already sent their current rate in. If you did that, I'm not talking to you, but if you have a new current rate, please send that in, as you get them updated or whatever, extended. Yeah, and then as you know, you can submit budget revisions at any time. I know right now we're having a COVID challenges all across the nation. Schools are closing or going back virtual. Things are kind of changing up, and I know that always affects our programs. So, if you need to submit another budget revision, even though you just got one approved a week ago or 2 months ago, please know that you can still submit that in. If you want to set up a one-on-one call or have questions about any of those changes, please set up a one-on-one call with me. And then to follow up with that, there's 12 grantees I'm still waiting to approve budgets. There's only a couple I have not received at all. Most grantees that's on this list, I've been working with. They, I'm waiting for revisions or they ask for an extension. So, if your name's on this list and you're shocked, reach out to me. We can figure it out. But the biggest thing and reason why I want this budget, I'm requesting this budget, is that any of your remaining funding from year one, I want to see in this year's fiscal year's funding. So, I'm looking for that carryover from year one. I want to see that allocated properly to fit the 80% going to direct services and so yeah, any revisions you want to change, you can submit those too, but definitely I want to make sure we're on the same page for what you have to spend this year. I know it's some confusion if you received a budget reduction and you still have funding remaining, or if you just didn't think you could carry over any funds. A lot of, not to put anyone on the spot, but some of the grantees, why I'm requesting revisions is because they're only submitting a budget that was just for this year's funding and not including any extra money I still see in G5. So, make sure that, we're on the same page, that you understand, we want to see all of the amount that's remaining in G5 spent this fiscal year. And that's all I have to say. And I'm happy, you're all here, and I hope everyone's healthy and staying strong and, doing everything you can for your ACE project, and it's going well. I know this year should be a little bit more fun because we're implementing now. So any questions? My Calendly is updated. So, if anyone needs to set up a one-on-one call, or, have anything that they need to send me, definitely do that. And I'll turn it back over to Alani.
Awesome, thanks. Did anybody have any questions for Bianca regarding those updates? You can go ahead and come off mute or put it in the chat. Nobody? Okay. So that's awesome. Or at least nobody, let me see. There's two screens, so I don't see anybody's hands up. All right, let's move on. So again, it's the new year. We want to just look again at GEPRA measures, be really mindful throughout the year about what our GEPRA measures are. And also, we're going to go and have a little discussion about two in particular GEPRA measures and how you are collecting them. Again, this is a real good opportunity for your peers to hear how you are collecting this data, and maybe give each other ideas. So I know you folks are all familiar with this. We'll move on to the two. So as it relates to, I'm just going to run through all of this. Oh, sorry. I went too far. Okay, so as it relates to GEPRA measure and sharing, so regarding collecting response time measure data, this is related to, let me go back to that GEPRA. This is related to GEPRA measure number 7, the average time it took a grantee to respond to requests for specific services. So I just sort of want to throw the question out, like, when are you collecting this data? Is it monthly, quarterly, maybe daily? What type of system are you using to collect the response time data? And who is collecting and analyzing this data? Anybody want to take the first question? When are you collecting your response time measure data?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is
Go
Autumn
ahead.
Smith Amy from Anchorage, Alaska. We have the 2 Minute program. We are collecting this data and data trackers a couple times a week. We developed a measurement, a standard for ourselves, such as we believe it should take 24 to 48 hours for us to follow up with, somebody asking that question of what we should do with adding a service provider. So we're tracking that internally.
Mm-hmm.
Provided that standard for ourselves of 24 to 48 hour follow-up. Follow-up meaning contact with the person. It doesn't necessarily mean that if they ask for a wonky service that we can't really get due to COVID or whatever, but just like that initial measurement of how long it took us to respond to them.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, can I chime in real quick, Alani?
Go for it.
So I know, the first year was a planning year, so maybe we didn't have so many requests from this, but I do kind of want to clarify this just because some of the data that we received from the APRs we, collected and reviewed, and we've received so many varied answers on this. And for us to like get an average time response, we kind of need like an actual number, if it's 2 days or if it's 3 days. That's, that's kind of like what we're looking for. And this should be the input when services are received. We've done a lot in the planning period where we were asking for like what services the community may be interested in. So that's very different than like, having services listed and then a parent not liking that service or wanting something different, right? So when we're asking this question, I want you guys to think about that, if that clarifies anything.
That's great. So with that really informative clarification, anybody else want to share how you are collecting the input data? I mean, and maybe even how you are defining what is the number of days that you're sort of defining as, that time that you're shooting for.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kind of mention a little bit about what we're doing with this. We actually haven't had as many. So some of the ways that we're collecting, or at least the time we're collecting, is during the surveying. So when families come into the program, we're doing a trimester style. So we just started off with fall. That's about to end right now. So when the families came in, they received an email for a survey, including the Deprived measures. That's how I was collecting. I thought would be the easiest way. And my email, as well as a group email for the grant itself. When those messages would come in, we would just keep that on an Excel form. So when they contacted us, what their request was, and this is for every kind of communication. So not just them requesting, oh, we want a new service. This was just a way for us to track how long it took for us to get back to our families. From that point, I highlight the ones that are requesting actual new services, and then we'll average those out to come up with our time. So originally we said 24 to 48 hours is when we wanted to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Our time is better than that right now. So pretty happy.
Good job. Good job. That's a great definition. And again, it sounds like you have a system in place. Awesome. I wanted to ask you, what other, I guess, communication are you having since you're collecting it all? Are there other sort of clusters that you normally get communication from parents on?
For me personally, a couple of the services that we're providing are coming either from the department that I'm in or our cultural resources department, and they asked me to help out with some of the communication. So for instance, we're doing a Traditions 101 course. It's virtual pretty much the entirety of it, except for a couple of the dugout canoe experiences we did. So I send out a reminder email what event is coming up. I send a calendar invite. And then sometimes when I send those invites out for our weekly traditions course, I'll get messages back.
Wow.
Or when we're doing our events, I'll send out the same thing and then I'll receive information back from family. So that's when I get a lot of my clusters as far as emails coming in, is when I'm reaching out to the parents specifically about a course that's coming up or a class or event that we're doing.
Nice.
And then now that I'm in open enrollment again for the upcoming spring semester, and I've been out at our area meetings, presenting the grant and the programs and things that we've done this first semester. I've been receiving also more clusters of information. So last night I was meeting with our D2 reps in their area. And right afterwards, I started getting some messages, obviously, is later at night. So I wasn't looking at those, but this morning when I got into my work mode, I opened up my email and there was 5 different messages from families saying they watched the presentation and they had questions. So that's when
Nice.
I'm receiving a lot of my clusters.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that additional share. Anyone else? How are you collecting your parent input and new service additions requests?
This is Mark Karatska from Jagat Schmidt, and
Hi.
and I'm here with, I'm on here with our program manager Laura. And one of the things that, of course, we're entering our first year of service, and one of the exciting opportunities that we're adding, planning for implementing during spring semester is a 1 credit college prep introduction to Sixth language class
Mm-hmm.
that's being offered to high school students, juniors and seniors. And one of the things that we've received from parents is that uh, they often have very little uh, opportunity to provide that kind of information to their students. And so the input that we're going to be collecting would be the communication threads between the provider and the parent, or the one who's acting out for the parent. And then we have a staff member who's going to work with Laura on, and Laura of course has a database that she's collecting on, the dates and stuff, which is really important. And then we'll be working with another staff on collecting and analyzing the data as it's being developed. So this opportunity is both education related as well as culturally relevant, because it incorporates a college prep program, but it also incorporates the language component, which makes it culturally relevant. So we're excited about trying some of these. And
Yeah, great. Sorry. Thank you for sharing. Um, I wanted to ask, when I heard a little bit about when you are sort of collecting that data, but if we could get more of you to share how often or what the frequency of your collection of data is.
Working on as possible. So we're looking at like chunking out calendarings of time where we do data entry throughout the week so that we're staying really up to date on what information we are gathering, especially since we just recently launched and we're getting a lot of feedback from like a lot of different places at once. And just making sure to carve out that calendaring. I think the challenge can be in terms of just data collection over broad, just kind of putting it in a stack and kind of saying, I'll get to that. But there's so much data collected through this particular grant that we really want to protect the time that we need to be able to gather that and do it well and make sure that it's, conforming to standards and it's SUSAN.
Yeah, great. Anyone else want to share your sort of when you collect this data? And I guess you went into also how you're managing it too, right? I mean, it's one thing to collect data, but then, like you said, it can kind of just go on the shelf and I'll get to it. But you sort of created time for that as well. Anyone else want to share?
Hello, everyone. I'll add just one quick thing. This is Kayla Elkire Stewart from United Tribes Technical College. We found out early on we have student success coaches in local high schools, and they were getting lots of calls from the parents and informal requests. And we knew that we would need everything documented. So we created a very short, streamlined form, easily accessible for parents and students to submit requests. So we would have documentation, and that's time stamped. But we also said, you could also text or email just so that we have something that's time stamped on paper. And then we have, all of our Excel sheets and everything like that, where we kind of just stop and drop. And then we're doing our main data analysis at the end of each semester, or like someone else mentioned, it's more of a trimester schedule, fall semester, spring and summer. So that's when we really look and put everything where it needs to go and do this whole team debrief on how we did meeting these measures and our own internal objectives as well. But it's really nice knowing that you have all the information you need, even if you don't have time to stop and analyze it. When it's documented, it's time stamped, and you're good to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is also the reality, right, of all that data. So, you kind of alluded to it a little bit. Does anybody want to share about, like, do you have somebody or someones who are actually collecting data? And then do you have somebody or maybe a team that is taking that data that's collected and analyzing it? So have you designated particular people or teams in your organization to collect and analyze that data?
Hi, this is John Barbary.
Hi, John.
I wanted to talk about how we do ours. Our manager, Ms. Anita Fantroy, had used a software when she was working in TRIO programs previously to working with us, and it's called Bloomin. And so it basically is a student profile database. So all data that we collect on individual students, we're able to put in this database, and it has some reporting functions. It also has allowed us to do some online surveys through the system. And so it's just going to make it so much easier for reporting time when we have to do aggregate reports on our metrics. These things will be placed in. Our academic counselors all have access to the system, and they are entering data when they have contacts with parents or students, when a service is being provided, when that's starting, when that's ending. And, also we're collecting, copies of report cards and status reports that students get right before they get their report card. So anything related to that particular student is stored in this database. And it was a very inexpensive subscription to get it started with it. We had used the system at the end of our other grant that we had, our NYCP grant. And so with so many more things to track, it's helping us quite a bit. Of course, all of us are getting used to using it. I still, the way I use it, I just pick up the phone and say, Lanita, can you find this for me? But I have dabbled in it and have been able to, get to some information that I needed on occasion. But it's something that our staff is getting used to using, making sure that they're keeping up with inputting their data. And so that's sort of a shared process among the staff.
Nice. And can I ask you a follow-up question? So with all of that data that's getting put in for the individual, it's then able to sort of like pull that out like on a data point and be able to show you all of?
Yes, of course, when we report on, say, the status of a group, say of our fifth graders, or grades K through 5, or middle school 6 through 8, or high school students, we can group it any way we want. And we're able to, track grading reports for various subjects. And so it'll make it so much easier for us to provide summary information without having to, I mean, we can drill down to the actual student, but
Right.
that's not how we usually report. We report on the aggregate, on the
Right.
groups. So it makes it easier to do that kind of reporting.
Yeah. That's great because you can, like you said, you can both see the student as well as the aggregated data across the program. So
Right.
that's a cool
Right.
system.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? I see some in the chat. We have evaluation, external evaluation teams, and I just sort of posed a follow-up question. Is I know, it's great to have an evaluation, but you still got to get the data to them, and so are they intimately involved in sort of the programs so that they can pull that data out of your participants or get access to that? That was a question, and that's for anybody who has an external evaluation team. I'm sure you have a process to actually get the data to them, and that's a question.
It
And
looks
if
like
you,
Jessica has her hand up too, Alani.
oh, okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
There. Hey, so I can speak to the support that I offer to the family liaisons across our NISN network as
Right.
the communications support. I'm the director for the NACA Inspired Schools Network. And so since June, we've been working with family liaisons in their respective communities in acquiring qualitative storytelling data that will, be aggregated or transferred into maybe like more quantitative data down the line. But we're about to embark upon launching a 3-phase, some school site visits now with the new wave of COVID that poses certain challenges, but there's going to be a hybridity quality to that, but it's going to be centered around voice and storytelling and testimonials to the experiences, as a recipient of ACE across our school communities. So this would include, of course, our school leaders and our educators, the facilitators that are providing the direct services, as well as our family liaisons, and very importantly, our parents, family members, and our youth. And so it'll include in acquiring assets such as film for video making, as well as still photography for documentation through photos and other shared experiences. So we're still in the planning phases of implementing it this year, but working together as a team to see how it will be translated, I guess, into other types of quantitative data points. But we work closely with the practice of what we call street data. And
Yeah.
so this is us really, at least across the ACE grant, delving deep and unpacking how this could really benefit our communities and also meeting our deliverables for the grant itself. So we're really excited about that. And we're hoping for the best, especially in regards to COVID and the health and safety of all folks involved.
Well, that sounds like a really amazing project. Can't wait to hear and see the products that come out of that. Hey,
Yes.
Mary, go ahead, Mary.
So we do use an external evaluator, and what I had to do, well, I'm a one-man team right now. I lost the only employee I had, so it's a lot of work. But anyhow, I'm thankful that we had a great evaluation team during NYCP, and we moved them forward onto the ACE grant, and they're so helpful. And it's so what I did was to put them in contact with the school. So I introduced them via email, and the school has our releases for our student information. So our evaluators just contact the secretaries at the school who will dig up whatever information that the evaluation team needs. And then for, the things that happen here in my office, then I just report, I track everything and report it almost as I finish with whatever that event would be. Like 2 days ago, I hosted another student advisory committee meeting, and I submitted my notes and the attendance for that. And the evaluators track it all for me, which, like I said, is really wonderful. It's a little costly, but to me, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly now that you're a one-woman show, right?
Right.
And I think it's great that you have that partnership with the schools that the evaluators can go in and request that money. So then it removes you as sort of that, them having to go through you and you processing all that data.
Hmm.
Anyone else
Yeah.
want to sort of share as it relates to collecting, as it relates to sort of the response time and collecting data? Oh, I moved on ahead a slide. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, the next GEPRO we wanted to look at was the Meets Educational Outcomes Measure. And let me go back to the actual GEPRA. And so this one is the number of grantees that meet their educational outcome objectives, decrease schools, for example, decrease school suspension rates, increase graduation rates, increase school attendance as defined by the grantee. So this is really, you have the opportunity to define what meet their educational outcome means. Um, and so let's go ahead and like maybe we could share how you folks are collecting that data. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe what types of educational outcomes are you measuring or are defining as you meet that educational outcome. Any thoughts? Are you collecting suspension rates or graduation, grades? I heard John say they collect report cards.
Can I say one thing too before anyone shares? Just, I know I'm going to go into it more on the next talking stick session, but I do want to underline that this measure is only asking for one educational outcome. And I know that that got super confusing in the last APR. So, you can have several different goals, but there should be one, like, are you increasing grades, or, what outcome are you measuring that is considered educational? Or I think there's a list of options in like parentheses before. So, it doesn't have to be like all of your educational ones. If you have 20 different educational ones, maybe for, I don't know, but yeah, just pick one for the skipper measure that you're going to constantly keep measuring each year. And everyone could share now.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for that clarification. Go ahead.
I think one of the things that, for example, with the program I just described a few minutes ago, we have had a very dismal record of students who of post-secondary matriculation in a college or vocational training program, and so we're looking at maybe this class that is being requested. How many of these students will actually enroll in a first year college program, secondary, and also um, keep track of those numbers as for the next 4 years, so we can begin to see how much of the how much impact this had in providing them to self-determine their future, but professionally. But also we're looking at the opportunity that maybe, because it's a culturally relevant thing, we're also looking, we're a heritage program that preserves our language and culture. How many of these students, because of that one credit course, might be interested in pursuing an occupation endorsement certificate in Suksoon through the local college program, and therefore sustain their language as well, which the parents are very concerned about.
Yeah. Thank you. Bianca, I just want to clarify just a question, because I think that was uh, really an important piece of information you just shared, and with the example that was just shared. So this educational outcome is something that we would, like if I was a program, I would pick that would be maybe what all of my programs and services that we're offering might lead to this outcome, right? So, because you said I'm just picking one. Is that correct? So it's not per service, it's for the entire ACE program of services,
Yeah.
suite of services. Okay. I heard someone was speaking. Go ahead. You can come off of mute. Did someone have something they wanted to share maybe? Or maybe, maybe last year you were a grantee who was reporting on maybe 5 educational outcomes, and maybe now with this new information, which outcome do you think you might be focusing on for this year to report? That sort of sums up sort of your suite of ACE programs. Anyone have an idea what they might be reporting for this GEPRA?
So typical GIPR measures, just because, I feel like people are being quiet and I've read your guys' APRs. Like increasing graduation rates, it seems to be very common. If it's like, increasing a grade or increasing, more like, what was mentioned just previously, like, more students will select this course, or, so if you guys have any examples that you feel best represents your project, please share.
Bianca, would it have to be quantitative? Or could we look at
So-
qualitative?
We still have to put in a quantitative number. Everything is going to be, the percentage, but
Okay.
when you're doing your, well, it's not percentage, it's actually a ratio. So when you're doing your APR, you still can explain that qualitative piece. You can add that narrative to explain, the qualitative side, but you definitely want to make sure that, even if it's, measured by your own tool. I don't know if you're doing like surveys or you're doing, something that you can measure the students' progress or satisfaction, or something that's still
Right.
educational based. Maybe your whole goal is to get more kids into STEM. Now, before, when you first started ACE, kids no one enrolled for the STEM class at whatever. Now, you know what I mean? Like, you
Right.
need to show some
Okay.
type of quantitative change.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bianca. Ryan, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, this is a really tough one for me. And Kayla, I feel like we're in the same kind of boat here, where our grant writer specifically puts down that they were going to be doing reflection papers or videos to give their feedback on how, the program itself, how it helped their understanding of post-secondary. And we only have one of our goals, which really has like a percentage. We're supposed to increase their understanding of either college or career options by 20% at these events. So when I put together the courses, and having 7 courses, some are focused on goals 2 and 3, which have no kind of data besides the reflection. And the one, which is events, a series of events, I guess I could call some of my other courses events, but this is a really tough one for me. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do because of the way the grant was written. So yeah, I'm really hoping someone else has some ideas or things that pop up that can help me.
Anyone want to offer Ryan some advice? Maybe you've had to deal with the same challenge. How'd you overcome it? Okay, I see. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I'll hop in. Thank you, Bianca, for helping inspire me to step forward. And I don't know whether relevant or not. With ours is a STEM related project. It's Alaska Native Engineering Education Development project. So it's a K-12 grant. Our efforts right now, because of COVID and not having residential students traveling at the high school level, has been heavy at the elementary level, K and middle school, K through 8. So we're looking specifically at students' science and math scores, and knowing that beginning that our proficiency levels, are near 90% of students that are below or far below proficient, to look to measure and see change over time with that. But one of the things that's notably very challenging, the geographic region that we represent is the size of the state of West Virginia. So we're flying out to small villages to deliver programming. And through the fall months, we're really facing a surge of COVID in our region that would impact us getting to villages or even being there participation rate. So from my own desk, I've been looking at the attendance of students that are in program, because I think one of the things that we'll want to see at the end of the year, you know, your gut feel tells you that the more exposure they have to a treatment, the greater the likelihood of gain. So where are the sites that we see a lot of students or for more programs, and where we have more success with it? So knowing or not knowing, kind of feeling that may be a challenge. One other element that we're looking at, see if I can remember this off the top of my head, is it's a retrospective pre-post assessment of engineering attitudes and assessments. So this is an assessment to look at students, whereas they will reflect on a year ago before this project, how did I feel about this? And now after experiencing it, how do I feel about it? And I really think that's going to perhaps provide more of the data of students that have been inspired by their STEM exposure, their interest, they're wanting to continue, have more of it, and then that hopefully leading into what we find for a difference in science and math. And I think specifically science, because it's really underrepresented in the curriculum, because frankly, the elementary teachers are just slammed with so much content that they have to cover. And it's one of the things from going and observing the program in action that has just brought a smile to my face of listening to the scientific and engineering language and content that little first grade, second grade, and third grade students are speaking, you know, prototypes, most recently prototype. My prototype is this, your prototype is that. I didn't use prototype until I was in college, and these are second grade using it. So that's an example from here, Northwest Alaska.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Jessica, I see your hand is up. Did you still have a question or something you want to
Oops,
share?
lo siento, that might still be
Okay.
just my leftover hand
Okay.
up. I
Okay.
apologize.
I was just
Sorry
checking.
about
No
that.
problem. Just checking. I do see that there was a question in the chat that I'm gonna sort of pitch off to Bianca. A question regarding whether you can change, as it relates to this meets educational outcome, GEPRA, if you could change the measure you choose from one year to the next.
Yeah, so you should definitely keep the same measure. I would say that if you put multiple measures for this one your first time, you definitely want to choose one so we can have a more accurate calculation of what we're looking for. So, you know, if you had multiple submitted, or you were counting all of your educational outcomes, definitely just pick one that can, you know, summarize your focus or your scope of your project. So yeah, for example, if it was increasing the graduation rate, you want to show that, you know, your efforts each year to do that.
Okay, great. Thanks for answering that question, Bianca.
Of course.
Um, okay, let's move on to the next series. Oh, there we go. So this goes to DEPRA measure regarding collecting services added. So we're looking at, sorry,
Number 8.
number 8. The percentage of parent requests for additional services that resulted in adding new services as offerings. And let's go back. So again, just sort of the similar kinds of questions. How are you collecting parent input so this one is not just the input, but as it relates to actually creating a new service, right? And so how are you that's going to be, actually, we'll stay there
I
for
think we kind of reversed it before because I feel like we talked about this, the
yeah,
service that's input before, and had a lot of input from that. And that's
yeah.
probably my fault.
No, no problem. So do you think we've answered this one, or we talked about this
Yeah,
one?
I think we touched base on this one, unless anyone else has any more information. Or I know that a lot of grantees like propose, building websites and apps. I don't know if anyone wants to share how that's working. Maybe you don't need an evaluator because you have like a really good system in place that's collecting this information. But yeah, if anyone wants to share more, but I do think that this is, well, I think the first one that we
Okay,
spoke on.
gotcha. Anyone want to give us maybe an update on how your website or your portal is working as far as being able to collect the data that you need?
I'll speak to that. This is Ashley from the American Indian Center of Arkansas.
Hi, Ashley.
And I built a website for our students and parents to use to easily navigate access to their surveys as well as their services and all of the orders that they process, to have a record for themselves as well as us. And because of that system, and we also use Google, all of our data is pretty much collected for us. So then we are able to extract that data into Excel spreadsheets and determine which information is relevant for each GIPRA measure. So we don't have to hire anyone because we did the hard part, which
Yeah,
was making sure that the systems were in place to collect that data automatically.
nice. Nice.
I knew a couple grantees did it. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing.
No problem.
And so we can also look at this. The next one is number 2, the number of culturally relevant options. So I just sort of wanted to take some time for how you folks are defining culturally relevant options as it relates to educational related services. So let's go back to that slide. So when you're talking about culturally relevant services, I guess they're culturally relevant. What is your definition? How are you sort of dividing up and counting those in for that GEPRA measure? Anyone want to share?
I'll share.
Come on, John.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, we offer Tunica language classes. We also offer cultural craft classes. And we also have worked on providing some other academic activities where we integrate our heritage language and elements of our folklore and so forth into these activities. And so it's an ongoing process, and we are still kind of, feeling around for how we integrate cultural information into our academic, offerings that are in services that we do. So it's an ongoing thing, and I'm sure there are other tribes that have a whole lot more elders that are able to contribute to, some of these services that they are providing. We're limited to what we have. I think we have a growing and cultural program that's providing content that can be used in our educational programming. So that's something that we're doing on an ongoing basis.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. Are others of you doing language or culturally related or relevant activities?
Well, I think in following up with the gentleman's conversation, contribution just before me, one of the things that we say culturally relevant, this class, for example, because in the survey, the parents responded that they wanted something, they wanted some, their students to be able to get the information about, to be prepared for college, for example.
Right.
But they also were concerned about preserving their language and culture. And so we designed, hopefully we'll have this class designed so that it meets what they were wanting their students to concentrate on post-graduation, but also to result in an introduction to their language and culture through a college program. So I think anything that's related to heritage preservation in our program up here, we like the cultural and language portion. We feel like that the parents are really feeling like their language and their cultural traditions are being sidetracked. And if our program can support the sustainment of those cultures or language, then, and if we can add it into activity, then I think we're a lot more stronger with that. We're meeting some of their objectives.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you for sharing. I thought I saw a hand. I see Doug, but I thought I saw another hand before that. I think it was Tina. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. You can come off mute.
Yes, ma'am. It's Tina.
Tina. Okay, great. Thank you.
So I'm with Nenana, the Nenana City School District, and for language, right now we aren't doing anything specific, but we are in the process of implementing. Doyon Native Corporation has an amazing online language program.
Nice.
And so myself, our tribal administrator, are we met with Doyon, we're previewing this program, and we're trying to learn our own language actually from our own village.
Great.
Online. And then would like to implement this next year during the school year with our Alaska Native arts and culture class.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing. Doug, how about you? I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to share that, like in the world of STEM, and I'm thinking of culturally and regionally relevant together across our region. In the villages, 99% of the student population is Alaska Native. So the STEM projects and units that we have, that we're delivering and have accessible to deliver, kind of fit the needs of the region. So very first unit was an electrical engineering unit called Light Up the Night. And it was really cool that when teachers were out delivering this in some villages in October, like they sent back some incredible pictures of the Northern Lights in Alaska, which is like the cover shot of this unit that's being delivered. But while they were out and in one of the villages, there happens to be one of these units that's an oil response unit that we have. And there was a request from a teacher at the site, which in their village, they were dealing with an oil response issue at the time. So when they heard that there was a unit that could be delivered that was relevant to their setting, they were all over that. So I think of things that we have from units that are here to avail for avalanche systems, for earthquake resistant buildings, seawalls. We have rising water. We have some villages with issues of being protected by the seawall. That all of these things are relevant in the regional context and the culture of the people. So in upcoming program here in 2 weeks is a partnership with the Alaska Native Science and Engineering program that will be bringing students down to Anchorage for a 10-day program. I guess it's a little under that, with that element of getting them prepared and exposed on a pathway to college. But it's all, again, culturally relevant, and I think that's the element of the overall program delivery, with a focus on hands-on and things that our student population tend to succeed better with.
Nice. That sounds like a great, interesting, and fun partnership. So good luck on that one. Anyone else have something they want to share? What are some of the culturally relevant activities that maybe in the last well, most of you are in in planning last year, so maybe you weren't able to report it on your last year's APR, but maybe any culturally relevant activities you figure that you're going to be reporting on this year's APR. Anything else? Ryan, is that you?
Yeah, that's me again. Hi, everyone. I just love
Cool.
sharing some of these things. They're just
I
really
love it.
exciting to me.
Great.
So again, Ryan Crane, Ho Chunk Nation. In Madison, Wisconsin, they unearthed a 1,200-year-old ship, which they claim to be the oldest shipwreck in the state that they had found. Turns out it's actually a fishing vessel from our tribe, and there's still weights in there when our people used to fish that area using weights and nets. So part of that unearthing, the city wanted us to start producing another canoe.
Wow.
And our cultural resources division was struggling a little bit with it. And we actually ended up partnering with them to allow our students to help out dig that canoe.
Nice.
So our students are getting a chance to see how a canoe is dug out, how it's formed. And then in the late spring, early summertime, they plan on taking this back to Lake Mendota and letting it float with some students. So really excited for this. It was not something that was on our radar at all when classes were starting, but then became one of the really big parts of our program for the traditions course.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a great find, huh? And then connecting it, which has STEM and STEAM all over it. So that's awesome. We have some other sharing in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to sort of look over there, you might want to take a look there. Tina's sharing about for STEM, that's culturally relevant, you implement a dog mushing program. Nice. This spring. A lot of really great connects for STEM and culturally relevant learning. Anyone have anything else they'd like to share? Okay, well, with that in mind, let me find my cursor here. Um, that takes us right into sort of looking at education related culturally relevant strategies. And there is a lot of research out there that shows that both native language and cultural programs um, are associated with improved academic performance, decreased dropout rates, improved school attendance, decrease of clinical symptoms, as well as improved personal behavior. So, really, if you look at it, like culturally relevant and native language is a best practice for native students to increase the uh, educational performance. And so, there's a range of ways that, or a continuum of language learning. So we'll be talking a little bit about language right now. From elective, where you actually like take a course, maybe like, when you go or in high school or something, you can take, in Hawaii, you can take Japanese and Spanish, but maybe a native language might be a choice that you can take as a language elective. Or there are some programs that provide bilingual, where my child actually went to a preschool that was bilingual. So she had one teacher that spoke to her entirely in Hawaiian and another teacher that spoke to her in English. Or you could have separate classrooms. And then there's the partial immersion, where most content areas are taught in the native language, but primarily, usually the example is that English is actually taught in English, and so that would sort of be a partial immersion. And then there is the full immersion language environment, where everything, including English, is taught fully, all content areas, and everything is taught fully in the native language. And so we're gonna be having, there's a poll that should be coming up. Well, sorry, not a poll, but I'm gonna put on the annotate um, and allow you to annotate. I hear already that some of you are actually doing language instruction. So we've done this with the NAL group and the NYCP group, and so now we want to collect from the ACE people, the ACE grantees, what languages are you providing instruction on, or are you providing services to? Um, so if you could go ahead and type in the native language, or you can even, if you're not able to access the annotate button, you can actually put it in the chat as well. So if you could just share, or is it maybe, you know, I'm trying to think of, sorry, Navajo, not Navajo, Navajo. What is the native language for Navajo? Sorry,
Dinepisat.
yes, thank you very much. I was drawing a blank. So if you could go ahead and put the language that you are providing instruction, again, in either the annotation or the chat. And we're just collecting to sort of see who else is providing language outside of sort of your NAL Native American Language Grant Program. Great. Keep adding, keep adding. Paiute. Thank you. I'm going to leave this annotation up for a little bit so you can go ahead. If you're having difficult time finding the annotate button, it's in your toolbox for Zoom. If you don't see the actual annotate pen, you can click on the more or the options button, and a drop down menu should drop down, and then you look for the annotate, and that allows you to go ahead and type right on this screen. Okay. So go ahead and please keep adding to, excuse me, my throat. Please keep adding to the chat if you haven't been able to put your native language that you're providing instruction on. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to close the annotate for now. And again, please keep putting in the chat your language. Alrighty. Oh, it's still making me. Sorry, let me go ahead and erase. There we go. And disable. Alrighty. Why is it? Sorry, this is not. Technical difficulties. All right. That should have done it. Okay. So when we're talking about native languages, maybe when you saw that continuum, how are you providing access to native languages? I'm guessing most of you, because you're ACE grantee and you're providing services and connecting to service providers, it's probably more like actual language classes that students go to. You can come off of mute and just sort of share how you're delivering native language instruction. John, is that your hand up?
That's old.
Okay.
This is Tina from Nanana. So
Okay.
we are just using through that Doyon program. The units actually have a section where you can click on a button, and they will have an elder who speaks the language. They'll use the phrase and they'll say the words. So you can repeat it as many times as you need to. You can slow it down. You could also repeat it back for many of them. So it's a pretty cool program. And that's what we're using as the online format.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for providing that information. What types of language activities do you provide? I heard earlier in our talking circle you mentioned some like cultural activities that you may be engaging or incorporating language learning in.
In a perfectly normal year, we provide classes actually to the students who are in grades K through 12, as well as Head Start. But because during the last several months now, with COVID in place, we have provided access to, I mean, we have made possible access to online language classes to those same students,
Uh-huh.
as well as opened it up to other students from within the region. And the activities that they do are we're incorporating TPR. We incorporate the culture in the classes. We have elders come in, tell stories in their native language, and they have talk chats with the students. And we're using Cahoots as one of the online, since we're doing online programming, we use Cahoots the teachers use Cahoots at the end of every lesson to see whether they retain what they're learning, and then they do that often. And so that's what we're doing for the Sukbak language program. And then we've developed a 12-month, we've centered our language instruction around the 12-month traditional Sukbak subsistence activities, or the traditional activities that happen according to fall, spring, summer, winter. And then we've developed lessons for each of those seasons, and support that with culturally appropriate heritage kits that are also developed and online.
Yeah, that's I love that around the traditional calendar. I know some language programs also utilize like the different seasons and the moon phases and the different activities that happen in those seasons, right, to integrate the language. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I see, then go to the chat. Let's see. I see Jessica is sharing more about their indigenous language programs embedded throughout their different program offerings, and the different languages that they're offering. That's awesome. That's a whole bunch of language. And then John sharing about the language that they're instructing. Great. Awesome. Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that around your work around native languages. And then again, I mean, we kind of been talking about this the whole time. It's really talking about the cultural activities. We've already, I think when we went through the Gepper measures, you folks shared, the different types of activities, cultural activities you folks are providing. And the different traditional academic content. You mentioned about STEM content that's being integrated or being pulled out from culturally based activities. And then I just wanted to sort of pose this question. How do you see the connection between cultural activities and a high quality education? Do you see cultural activities as a best practice as it relates to um, the definition of a high quality education? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, most of us, I think, in the indigenous peoples of America grew up with an English curriculum that absolutely no ties to any of our indigenous traditions or culture. I grew up in a small territorial community village in Alaska, southwestern Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what the Bill of Rights were. I knew who the first president was. I knew who all the holidays were, and not once did I ever have a teacher that celebrated the local traditions and culture of my community. And it consequently, I feel like it really did a number on us in terms of our ability to appreciate and relate. But I think as we grow older, and now I'm a retired teacher after 34 years and incorporated a bunch of traditional activities in my classroom, I think we are really richer now in terms of implementing. We have the opportunity to provide that. And the parents and the grandparents just love it. And now we're just trying to help our activities help the local communities and our students self-determine their future in a much more positive light than than I did. And so I think we are very, very, very culturally aware of who we are, and it's accepted.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to make sure that we are very attuned to what the state standards are, because the state standards offer a culturally relevant view.
Yeah, great. That's great that the state standards reflect that, and that I think we've all seen sort of the movement, right, and how that impacts in education.
In Alaska, they call it the culturally responsive.
Yes. Yeah, and Alaska's done a lot of work in that area, both with the native language and culture. Anyone else? Thoughts on, I mean, so if you were to define high quality education, where do you see culture and language? Is it a part, I guess, of high quality education, and what value does it bring to that? Go ahead, Doug.
Sorry, I don't want to talk too much, but there's like Ryan,
Okay.
there's some things that just inspire me, and something that Ryan had just presented. To me, the crossroads of those things are bringing that element of the culture into the school. It's what we do, as the fabric as we do. So Ryan, as you were talking, I kind of wanted to jump into, because we had a similar project in one of our villages, Koyak, where there was a really old kayak from our region. Parts of it we ended up, the school, and then coming through our organization, ended up working with Malikiak Padilla, 10-time Greenland national kayaking champion, who just out my window of my office is initially a Greenland style kayak that we first built, but then building kayaks in our region, St. Lawrence Island style, King Island style, most recently. And I think the element of students doing and working with their hands, and that element of the culture infused in what they were doing. So as I was looking through notes or comments people had made here, and Tina over in Nenana had talked about dog mushing, in my head just a little light bulb had went off with an element of what we're doing in STEM, and what I hope my teachers will bring to the elementary population, that exposed to activities, again, regionally, culturally relevant. They're the generation that are going to solve future issues that are out there. So there was this really cool Arctic innovation competition through the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I encourage my own kids, who are 50% Alaska Native from their mom's side. They say they're Eskimo on mom's side and cheesehead on their dad's side, and they participated in this last year, starting with an idea of breaking from a dog sled, taking a break off from that, and putting it onto something as kids they enjoy doing, sledding. But it's that process of them thinking about an issue, a challenge, how to go about solving it, coming up with their idea for it, and then as kids being able to present that idea, sketch it out on paper, speak to judges about it. So I'm going to finish here. I'm gonna go find a really cool little less than 3-minute video, and I'm gonna drop it in the box. And I think you guys will enjoy a little look at Nome, but it's how I see that high quality, education culture coming together.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for that'd be great to check out that video. Thank you for sharing, Doug. Hey, Ryan. Oh, and the baby.
Yeah, I'm on duty now. My wife had to leave, but I wanted to mention that all the reporting for learning your language, there's so much great data that says that these students grow confidence.
Right.
That confidence leads to improved grades. Having that better self-esteem, and we know what happens when Native people don't have that self-esteem. Unfortunately, we rate as some of the things you don't want to rate the highest at in percentages. So having a strong traditional understanding and education only builds better understanding of education, and things to build our young people. Decreased levels of anxiety is another one that I think is really huge for our people is you learn your language, you're part of your culture, your anxiety goes down because that's our safe place,
Yeah.
which I think is huge. So I'm a big fan of of having tradition be part of education. And right now in Wisconsin, we're actually dealing with AB 411, which is trying to basically take away our opportunity to teach our traditional ways in our side of the story, which I
Wow.
know there's a bunch of other states that the same thing's happening where they don't want those cultural teachings and stories to be a part of education. So we're fighting really hard against that because we've built relationships across this entire state where our stories are told, our language is taught, and if this passes, then all of this that we built up, all these relationships, all these classes, they just go away.
Right.
It's something, again, I'm really passionate about, and something that we've been fighting for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I never, in thinking in terms of sort of what's happening nationally and how that affects like Native people, as far as like what can be approved as part of the educational system. That's a big area. And I think if we begin to articulate again and define high quality education as being relevant, then it has to be relevant to the place and to the people too, right?
Hmm.
Awesome. Thanks. Anyone else wants to share sort of your thoughts about culture and language and how that plays into, or does it play into, high quality education? Okay. If not, we'll move on. This is an opportunity for if you have any questions that maybe back from the first slides regarding any, you know, APR due dates or any other questions regarding maybe your budget, getting it submitted to Bianca. This is your moment to ask a question. We have about 10 minutes left.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is Ashley again.
Yeah.
So we have students that are seniors in high school, and they are requesting that we cover their college application fees. And I was wondering, is that an allowable expense for those students?
Yes, application fees, FAFSA, not FAFSA, ACE fees, SAT fees. What else could be college tours? Those are all different things you can offer college. I mean, not college. Don't offer anything to college students unless they're in high school still. But those are all things you can offer seniors.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bianca, this is related, but certainly a stretch. How about senior pictures, costs of senior pictures?
You know, I feel like someone did put graduation
Photos?
not photos, but like the attire before.
Because some of the schools they request a senior photo to be submitted, and lots of our students don't have professional senior photos. I mean, they could take one and print it or something like that, but we did have that request come in.
I think there should be a way to justify it, but yeah, that is like a stretch or creative one. But if I like how you're saying, like, if it's needed to like succeed somewhere else or to, move into the next
and scholarships,
like that reason for need, like, if you present that, I think, you'll be fine with offering it. But
and for some scholarships, they do request or require a professional photo to be uploaded. So I thought even for students to matriculate from high school to college, they need professional photos. So it could be one of their senior photos.
Yeah, that could be a justification,
I'll go with that. Thank you.
I have a question. By the way, we had a request for parking, and I didn't honor that request. So, but the question I have, Bianca, is how often are we supposed to update our list of providers to you? Is that okay to do? Is it?
As soon as you have a signed agreement, you can send me an updated list.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as your agreements are signed, that's what should be on the list. You know, you could and submit that as many times as you
In
like.
a memorandum format. Is that good?
I honestly just need the names and lists, you know, how you submitted in the year. I don't need your service contract or memorandum with
Just
them. I just need to know who you have contracts with, our service provider agreements with.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, looks like Jennifer has a question in the chat. COVID has caused our schools to be only online for the past several weeks. Can I get some tips on how you keep your students interested and attending our services? So I think that's maybe a question posed out to everybody. And I know Ryan, I think it was the last time we talked about, engagement, and that you're getting so many people, so many students enrolling, but not everybody's showing up. How do you keep them engaged? So Spencer, oh, it was Spencer that actually brought that up the last time. That's right. And so he's asking, do all of your students have access to the internet, Jennifer?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. We just it's been really difficult with the shutdown, and because our providers would come here, but now we have to work with them to do everything online. So what? Somebody was going to say something, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So I know that was a topic that came up the last time, and so we're actually thinking about adding that to the next talking circle, even though the next talking circle, we're really going to be focusing on answering your questions regarding the APR reports. Does anybody else have maybe Spencer or Ryan or somebody who was sort of dealing with that have any input? You could go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can come off of mute.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. It is really tough when they already have fatigue from virtual world, and a lot of our schools being either blended or right now completely virtual. It's hard to ask them to go to virtual school all day, get done with that, finish homework or whatever, any kind of other activities, and then jump on additional learning items. Um, so I guess it depends on each course. So, for certain things like language, I know our instructors provide, new books instead of just the traditional in classroom. Here's alphabet, here's certain words, here's a verb breakdown. They try to create games, tell stories, have different presenters come in. It's really tough for me on our life skills course though, because that's self-guided and we don't have an instructor. We don't have anyone that's right there that can kind of walk them through. So I've been trying to send updates with exciting things that they learn from the life skills course and how that translates to their everyday life and their future. Other than that, again, this is going to be something I feel like you need to start taking little ideas from every little, person that mentions what they're doing, and then specifically put it towards each one of your courses that you provide. The other thing I would suggest is the incentives. Now, really great area of what we can incentivize, but traditional items and things that relate to their culture is something I've been hearing is okay. So we've been focusing on different things from our local artists that we can have as that little carrot in front that still gets them to show up to different events and continue on with their courses.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing.
Can I share one idea too? Because I was talking with a grantee like a week ago on this idea, and kind of like incentivizing your services. Like if you know you have one service or I don't know, some technology or supplies or something that you're offering as a program, like, maybe you're incentivizing like you cannot, access selecting these services until you completed this service. You know what I mean? You can't mandate any, but like if they enroll in something, they need to complete it, right? So you're not gonna like keep enrolling students and then they're just not showing up when you have other students on waiting lists, or you can use the money different ways. So definitely, thinking of fun ways. I know we are very limited in how we can incentivize student participation, and it is super hard now with COVID. So, any ideas, please always share them. If you find something that really works, let me know. I could share it, or I think we still have our board up where you can post ideas and information. But, I think we all need to really think hard on how we can keep our students engaged during these tough times.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing that's not an incentive, so to speak, but for is to be able to pay for $100 per month towards the internet fees for each month that the student is involved with the program. So it kind of acts like an incentive, especially since our internet costs up here are so high and stuff, and there's so much lockdowns going on. So that was one way we saw it as a necessary supply for students.
Cool. Anyone else want to share? Okay, alrighty. Let's move on. So, just wrapping up, here are some of the upcoming events. What's not here yet is an actual additional talking circle for prior to the date that you would be needing it for your APR. So stay tuned. You will be getting an invite for that. And then we have our office hours coming up in January 27th, and then also in February. And then again, save the date. Project Directors Meeting is going to be happening May 10th through the 12th. And that'll be virtual again, just to remind you. There is the end of event poll that has popped up. You can go ahead. Please complete that before you leave. And if, you folks know our contact information. Again, any questions you have, you can contact Bianca. There's her email. Or even you can contact us at oie@seiservices.com. We're your OIE Technical Assistance Team. You want to make sure as relates to submitting your budget, you want to make sure you get that in directly to Bianca, so she can respond quickly in order to get all of your stuff in. And I just want to thank everybody for talking and sharing what you're doing within your programs and what you've learned, your challenges and your solutions that you've come up with. Because again, we all learn from each other, and you're the perfect sort of think tank as it relates to a variety of services being provided to community. So again, thank you. Have a great rest of your day and your work week, and take care. Everyone, be safe. Aloha.
Yes, take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Aww. The baby.
Got this baby and the other baby right next.
Oh my gosh.
Aww.
Oh, you're busy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Plus being a one-person show right now for the grant. There's a little busy, but we love it.
Yeah.
Aww. So cute.
You say bye.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie.
Yeah.
Take care, you guys.
So cute. When does Sarah come back from maternity leave, Alani?
Uh, February 14th.
Oh, Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Wasn't that a cute picture we saw the other?
Yes, in the tree. That was so
Oh,
cute.
I know. Oh. Let's see. I'm just trying to.
Right. Well, I think that went smooth. Thank you for coordinating. And yeah, I know I know probably work with a lot with Sarah with that, but we got a lot to work on with our GIPR measures.
Yeah, and I thought, I mean, I had created this before, all the needs assessment thing had come out, so I thought it was like, oh, good, we're beginning the conversation around these GEPRA measures, right?
Yeah.
So
No, we do need a lot of work on that. So I almost feel like the next talking stick session after,
yeah,
like, each time we go over something, I want a mentee, or like, I want to test them, like, do you understand what we just said?
yeah.
Or some type of, you know what I mean, because it's just like, yeah, it's crazy how a lot of them came
No, I
back.
hear you. It's almost sometimes when you look at the APR, it almost seems like when it went ear and then it came out. And I know they have a lot of stuff going on, right? But like, how do we make sure that they're getting like the critical pieces of information so they can submit?
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to like really think about that next APR and
Okay.
make sure it, gets the information out or something. Because yeah, when we just read it or something, like I need to, like, even if they get it wrong, like that's gonna help them remember what they need to do. So I gotta add another layer to the TA or instruction.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In the null, I had null right before you, and we went through the explanation of progress. So for the GEPRA, and sort of like really talked about like what you should be putting into that piece, because
Mhm.
and just providing it in bite-sized chunks versus, a whole APR. They only get a little bit, right? Only
Yeah.
retain a little bit. But anyway, alrighty. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Take care.
Enjoy your week. Bye.
Bye.